The last speaker is Clare Hedin. Clare Hedin. Clare Hedin. She is a teacher of creativity and innovation at San Francisco State University. Yes. And I believe she is going to play some music for us and do some other things. Here she is.
Thank you. Hi. So, just a quick question. How is everyone? You've been sitting still for hours upon hours. Is everyone doing okay? Would you like to stand up, even just for 30 seconds, jump up and down, scream a bit? Just something to wake up the energy. Our poor bodies need movement. It's not enough to just sit. So stretch. Look for a stranger, a nearby stranger. Introduce yourself. Just say your name. Just anything, just to stimulate you. All right, and I'd love to invite you to sit back down again. So my subject is dynamic emergence, and in brief, it's a phenomena. It's simply the phenomena of life arising. And I have been fascinated by life for as long as I have an awareness of having consciousness. So initially, that was very much nature-based. So there was no thinking as such involved, but merely experiencing. And I was very comfortable in the natural environments. And it was a hell of a transition, learning how to be with humans and how to make sense of all the different energy messages that we send, because as one of the gentlemen mentioned, our vocal communication is very minimal compared to the rest of the messages that we're sending. So I remember being a little girl at my parents' cocktail parties and handing around the hors d'oeuvres. That was our task, me and my brother. I mean, not all our lives, just, they're trying to make us useful. And I'd see these people, and they looked fantastic. They had makeup, perfect, big jewelry, beautiful outfits, lots of laughter. And yet, I felt more and more depressed as the evening progressed. I felt, without knowing how to label it, a disconnect. Cognitive dissonance, I guess, is what we call it now in the adult world. But it pushed me to want to understand why that was, why did I have that experience, and what is going on with humans? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here on the planet? There's obviously the philosophical question, which I'm not going to go into, because that's just a nice long conversation, but it's not what this is about. I've been making a map that I'm calling dynamic emergence, because by definition, dynamic emergence is the phenomena that occurs when two or more elements meet. So that might be you and another human, like you just did. It might be you and a natural environment. It might be you and your thoughts. You and a past loved one. Who knows? But in terms of non-locality, we have novelty arising all the time. And the question is, do we know how to pay attention? Do we know how to receive that information? So the first thing I want to do is simply go away from words and go into the realms of music and connect with you that way. This is a form of dynamic emergence, one of a million forms of dynamic emergence. I invite you to do what you will with this moment. So you could simply just soak it in. I think that's great. If you feel like vocalizing at all, even quietly under your breath, or even just humming here so that you don't have to worry about what people think of your voice, all of those things happen. Just do what you're inclined to do. And I'll probably just do it for maybe 2 or 3 or so minutes, and then we'll go to the very few slides that I have. I hope this doesn't fall off. I just want to add, this is my shruti. It's an Indian instrument that the English had something to do with. And just before I came in to take my position up here, I went outside to see which notes I was meant to pick. That is also part of dynamic emergence. The next slide. Thank you. So, no, back. One day, consciousness decided to create energy so that it could travel, change shape, play, and know things. Then it decided that actually it wanted to be known too. So it hid in anticipation inside energy, giving out clues every so often as to its presence, hoping that one day the people who were paying attention might notice it and become curious. Only then could consciousness reveal itself. Thus the game, hide and seek, was born, otherwise known to humans as the path of enlightenment. So the question is, the clues. What are the clues? I happen to think that there are a lot of clues, and we can track most of them through ourselves. I'm a heuristic researcher, as well as an academician, as well as a creative maniac. I've tried many creative forms, and what I've discovered is it's the energy of creativity itself that will have its way. And if you don't know how to use a particular skill to express that energy, you may be motivated by the energy itself to acquire that skill, or you will interpret and you will do it another way. But that we are not short on ways to express what's occurring inside. And we're also not short, apart from perhaps the knowledge of how, on the ability to evolve consciousness collectively by doing it individually. This is one of my maps that I've done over a long period of time of reflection, particularly self-reflection, but also observation, trying to see if it's possible without simplifying, overly simplifying. What are the main features that we experience life through, and then how can we use them with that knowledge? How can we use them respectfully, I would say? And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I don't have a lot of time today, but I just want to introduce this thinking to you so that you may take it where you take it, creatively and uniquely, because we are each unique. That is very much the point. So at the very top, I've got dynamic emergence is using creativity as a conscious path in the evolutionary flow. My bias is that. My bias is that we are here to contribute to the evolution of consciousness. How we do that, of course, is entirely personal. And we have three modalities in terms of how that's occurring. We have experiencing, we have analyzing, and we have expressing. That's where I've got to so far today. Within that creative process, you can also go further down into what may be more of the psychology of a human. We've got our mental faculties, our emotional faculties, and our sensory perception. I happen to be really interested in the sensory aspect of things because I'm learning more and more how that connects me. My intuition is very tied into the sensory perception of things. You may have noticed, when you get a hit on something, your body starts to tingle, or there's a heat or a flush. There's something that happens that indicates to you, I should be paying attention to this. That's a relationship between the intuitive intelligence and your sensory intelligence. And it's really, really accurate most of the time, as far as I can tell. If there are mistakes made in the interpretation, it seems to me it has more to do with the evolution of the personality and the skill level of being able to discern what's happening. A big deal with regards to any of this is curiosity. So kind of with a bit of humor, I've got here that curiosity is required, a bit like a job ad. Curiosity is required to be creative and transformational. So if there's no curiosity, then there's presumably not much motivation. So that's why I say that. These are a little hard to read from here. Let me. Actually, those are the three main things that I wanted to touch on. The reason it matters, and you'll know this from experience, there are times in a day or periods of times in your life where you feel either very alive or very flat. And I'm not just talking about emotional mood swings, although this is a conference about emotional intelligence, but I'm actually just talking about the sense of connection. Have you noticed that when you really connect to the truth of an idea or a truth of a moment, no matter how good or bad the news might be, there's a release and a sense of aliveness that is somehow bringing us home. Does that sound familiar? A little bit? Okay, good, some nods. intelligence is creative. To me, that just seems so obvious, that intelligence is creative. And then, of course, the inverse of that, creativity is intelligent. It knows why it's here. Now, I don't know that it has a story, like we make up stories about why it's here, like I made up the story on the slide before. But it seems to me that there is a knowingness that wants to happen, and it wants to happen in a creative impulse, and that is novelty, which brings us back to dynamic emergence, the phenomena of novelty arising. When we learn how to engage with that novelty arising, that's when we become young again. That's when we feel here, like we actually want to be here, not wondering what we can do next that might be better. Here is actually a great place. Can I have the next slide, please, Anya? I'm just sort of asking provocative questions, really. Questions to dance with. So, what is the purpose of creativity? Why do we have curiosity? And why do we seek intimacy? Because I feel that these are really, really strong motivators, like the desire for connection. We've all come here today. Some of us might know each other already, but a lot of us perhaps don't. But we're willing to spend an entire day in a room with each other, sitting still. Is it just for the information? Or is it for something else? Is it for a connection? Is it for something deeper? Are we looking for something deeper? The curiosity, where does that come from? Is it deterministic or is it teleological? Am I being drawn forward by something that wants to know itself? Is it my future self? Is it something that's got nothing to do with the me that I call Clare, that I'm getting to know every day, liking and sometimes disliking and trying to fix the fact that I could dislike anything about myself? Hopefully we're all working towards that, or perhaps you're already there. I just feel like these are important questions. I'm going to kind of go over here, and it might seem like a disconnect, but I guess for me, I'm trying to fill the gap, because I feel like this is all alive and real. And then I feel like we have this experience, like just before I came in, apart from asking which notes to play, I was out there in the garden, and I felt immediately at peace. I felt immediately right within myself. I lost everything that I'd carried from the day, not to disregard it, but simply to say there's just me here right now, because I need to be here right now to be with you right now. So there's a harmonizing that happens in nature. That's intimate. It's also very creative. Annie, can I have the next slide? So as far as emotional intelligence goes, and this is such a swift run through a very big subject, obviously, the more we have the sophisticated ability to meet ourselves emotionally, to put that into a language or a behavior that resolves something, heightens our awareness, creates deeper intimacy and connection, I feel like the more interesting life it will become, like for all of us. And it obviously just makes it a lot easier to be embodied. So the future of emotional intelligence, that is up to us. It is up to us individually. Like how we show up, how we react to people. Like I got upset at somebody earlier because I didn't like what he was saying. How could I do that? If I could play that scene again, how could I manage my emotions in a different way so that I could hear the information but not feel like it affected my universe? So that I could then actually have a discourse, right? So you can catch it, but can you start to dissolve the fibers, like the crystallized state that the earlier Andrea mentioned? Can we dissolve those fibers so that we're not a fixed reality, and so that our solutions are neither a fixed reality, but simply an opportunity for curiosity to express itself creatively? I posit that energy waits to be noticed. That's why that story popped up. Energy waits to be noticed. So, if you're ruminating on something and then you go quiet and then all of a sudden you have that insight, to me that is energy that's just been noticed. So I feel the solutions are ever present, and the game, if you will, is to be able to remember that, just simply to remember that, and to become curious, to use eyes, intuition, body, senses, everything, to start to listen in a very sensory way to what might be already posing itself, wanting to be used. If, this is a very long sentence, if we choose to engage with the intellectual, spiritual, artistic, embodied, interactive matrix of nature and life that is us, creatively, then we can dissolve the mantle of Maya, the illusion, the place where we get trapped, the samsara, and alchemize consciousness itself. To me, that is our job. You don't have to agree with me. It may feel like an imposition, but that's how it feels to me. It feels like the job of humans is to become interested in our consciousness through engaged play and to have fun, actually. That took me a while to realize. And to be truly present to all that is occurring, which, by the way, is how I define listening. Deep listening is being willing to be present for all that is occurring. And to simply notice what is happening, inside and outside of each of us. So in other words, become curious. Through the curiosity, become fully alive. Feel yourself in your aliveness. And then become you, because that is the gift that each of us brings to the universe. Next slide. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot about that. Oh! Yes. So, well, it was this rush. You mean, how did I feel when it was happening? Well, it was extraordinary. My whole breathing system changed. Like, I started breathing really heavily, and I noticed that very quickly I got seriously angry with that thought. The thought that it was a thought. He'd expressed a thought, nothing more. My whole body took that on like a warrior, and I think so. Then I had to track it, of course. So I tracked it, and I think for me, the reaction was, I'm a Libra, by the way, Libra rising. What that means is I'm the big defender for everything that's not present, whether I agree with it or not. That's just one of the weird things about Libra. I felt that because I have learned that what makes me unique and intelligent, it wasn't evident till now. I'm in my 40s. If that had been decided before I'd even left, like a test tube or something like that, it just made me feel for all of life that can't possibly express itself yet until it happens. And that part of our engagement with that, becoming aware of that, is the process of life. So to deconstruct it, and I might be completely misconstruing his point, so be aware of that. But with the way that I took it on, it seemed like it was annihilation of the possibilities of creative play and of, I guess, discovery, and for people to be allowed to discover themselves in their own time over an arc of life. Does that help? Some may have. I mean, that would make sense to me. Yes. Yes. Well, I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Thank you very much.